Hello there, my wonderful misfortunes. It's delightful to have you back here on the channel where we explore the enchanting realm of magnificent mishaps. Today, we're plunging into the depths of Season 1, Episode 5 of The Gilded Age. Title Charity has two functions. If you happen to miss the breakdown of Episode 4, be sure to catch up by watching that video. However, before we embark on this adventure, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, ensuring you never miss any of the exhilarating new content I bring to you. Now, let's delve into the intricate details of this captivating episode. Right here, the Russells have taken the spotlight as Bertha makes her grand entrance into high society. I adore the fact that the show is narrowing down its storylines, allowing us to delve deeper into the lives of these fascinating characters. Our journey begins with Gladys Russell attempting to make a sneaky getaway with the assistance of a maid. It's quite concerning how Gladys continuously puts the livelihoods of her servants at risk due to her self-centered ambitions. Last week, it was her governess, and now this. Thankfully, Bertha manages to catch Gladys before she can escape, ensuring that the maid doesn't face any consequences for being an unwitting accomplice to Gladys's misdeeds. Imagine the possibilities that would unfold for Gladys if she were to venture out on her own and embrace the wonders of the world rather than being confined within the walls of that magnificent yet isolating house. Undeniable that being secluded from the public and trapped inside one's own home all day can be incredibly disheartening. In the past, defying one's parents would often result in severe consequences, such as being disinherited simply because they couldn't have their way. It's astonishing how society tends to look down upon those who work hard to carve their own path in life, rather than relying on inherited privileges. It's a perplexing situation. Indeed, Marian and Peggy's relationship is still strained. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Scott pays a visit to the Van Ryan house in search of Peggy. However, she encounters Marian instead and attempts to use her to convince Peggy to return home. The reason behind their disagreement is still unknown, but Mrs. Scott brings up an interesting point. Despite Peggy's relatively comfortable life among white people, she will never truly be accepted. Realizing her mother's presence, Peggy establishes clear boundaries with Marian regarding her personal matters. Unaware of the conflict, Agnes asks Peggy to join Marian on a trip to hear Clara Barton speak in upstate New York for the charity Karen event. However, Agnes hesitates to trust Aurora's judgment due to Miss Chamberlain's involvement. Ivy Wonk's portrayal of Miss Armstrong, the maid in the Van Ryan household, has thus far been purely symbolic. She embodies a seemingly racist and stubborn woman who constantly belittles Peggy and takes offense when she joins the other staff members for meals. Miss Armstrong is old-fashioned and always appears angry. However, this week we finally learn more about her background. On her day off, she visits a tenement building near the 5 Points neighborhood of Manhattan, where she cares for her ailing elderly mother. She brings her food and changes her bed sheets. Although the scene is tragic, depicting a woman in declining health, when Miss Armstrong enters, she greets her mother and asks, "I'm not late, am I?" Her mother, with a thick New York accent, responds, "How should I know? I just lie in this bed all day." The conversation only becomes more insulting and ungrateful from there. At one point, Armstrong helps her mother into a chair, and the old woman snaps, "You're pinching me." Because in Armstrong's world, no good deed goes unpunished, and we begin to understand that maybe it's okay for her to be grumpy sometimes. We see that the nastiness runs in the family. Hell no, she still doesn't get a pass from me. Miss Armstrong is still staying. The Van Ryans are in for an exciting event at their place. Marian is eager to attend Clara Barton's talk in Dansville, New York, where the first branch of the American Red Cross is located. Aurora Fane has extended an invitation to Marian, but Agnes is skeptical, not only because of Aurora's recent questionable decisions. According to Agnes, charity serves two purposes. It can raise funds for the less fortunate and also serve as a means for social climbers to climb the ladder. I have to imagine being part of an elite club where you have to be cautious about people donating to nonprofits because they might try to cozy up to you. It's simply audacious. And let's not forget, the Astors amassed their wealth by hunting beavers in Michigan. Oh, sorry, Bertha. You'll have to earn the trust of the descendants of those beaver killers before you can attend their parties. Clara Barton and Ward McAllister, two individuals who actually existed, find themselves immersed in the fictionalized realm of the Gilded Age. Ward McAllister, portrayed by the talented Nathan Lane, is renowned for his influential role in molding and overseeing high society as Mrs. Astor's lieutenant. Clara Barton, portrayed by the brilliant Linda Emmons, is not recognized for her involvement in the trivialities of gossip. However, in this episode, both characters exhibit a profound comprehension of the significance and impact of wealth and social standing, albeit through contrasting approaches. Let's begin with the tale of Mr. McAllister, who has received an invitation to a delightful lunch hosted by the esteemed Aurora fame. Now, the true Mr. Alice McAllister hailed from the charming city of Savannah, Georgia, and this explains the delightful drawl in Lane's voice reminiscent of the iconic foghorn leghorn, as well as his Colonel Sanders-esque facial hair concealing a treasure trove of secret herbs, spices, and perhaps even the key to Mrs. Astor's heart. Joining them for this splendid luncheon are Marian, Mr. Raikes, and the lovely Bertha Russell. Mrs. Fane is doing Bertha a great favor by introducing her to the influential Cerberus, the gatekeeper of society. After Peoples, and she's also extending a helping hand to Marian by allowing Mr. Raikes to attend as he aspires to climb the social ladder and win the approval of Aunt Agnes, ultimately leading to his marriage with Marian. During the luncheon, Bertha seems to captivate the attention of Ward, and Marian, ever observant, comments to Mr. Fane, Mrs. Russell, and Mr. McAllister appear to be hitting it off quite well. To this, he responds with a mischievous smile. Why wouldn't they, my dear? After all, they are practically one and the same. The joy of social climbers, always seeking companionship on their ascent to the top. Marian, dedicated to supporting the Red Cross, embarks on a journey to Dansville, New York, alongside Aurora fame Peggy and Bertha Russell, all united for Clara Barton's cause. To their surprise, Mr. Raikes, who had arranged their travel, joins them on the trip. However, their arrival is met with unhappiness as Mrs. Morris, still mourning her husband's suicide and blaming Mr. Russell, expresses her disdain towards Bertha's presence. Despite this, Bertha's generous donation to the Red Cross earns her a special acknowledgement from Clara at the event. Mrs. Morris, disgusted, accuses Mrs. Russell of defiling her and even refers to her as the murderer's wife. Peggy and Mary have reconciled after Marian's well-intentioned but unnecessary act of charity, presenting Peggy with a pair of worn-out shoes at her parents' house. Peggy had advised Marian to refrain from the white savior mentality and give her some space. Although this could have sparked a fight on a reality show, our protagonists handle it with grace, and Marian agrees. Meanwhile, Peggy has her own agenda in Dansville, planning to write an article about the Red Cross for her job at the New York Globe. When introduced to Clara Barton, Peggy is warmly greeted and given the opportunity to speak with her for the article. Mrs. Morris is further disgusted by the fact that Clara Barton is extending her time to a black woman. As Clara offers to give all the women a tour of the new Red Cross facility, Mrs. Morris mutters under her breath, "She's not coming in with us." Overhearing this, Clara insists that Peggy joins them. It's truly refreshing to witness the non-society individuals taking the upper hand for once on this show. It was unfortunately common for charities to deny aid to African Americans in 1882. Later on, Marian was deeply impressed after reading Peggy's report on Barton in the event. Asking during a dinner with Marian and Mrs. Fan, Clara confidently reveals that she's well aware of Mrs. Russell's ulterior motive of using charity donations to elevate her social status. However, Clara, being the beneficiary of that money, has no intention of complaining. Some episodes, she even takes the opportunity to ask Marian if she could convince Mrs. Chamberlain, another outcast, to support her cause as well. Oh, Claire, I must say, you have a knack for befriending the unconventional big spenders that nobody else wants to associate with. After the dinner, Mr. Raikes escorts Marian to her room at the Dansville Hotel, and for a fleeting moment, it seems like they might engage in some scandalous behavior. but alas, Peggy interrupts, determined to preserve Marian's innocence. Oh, Peggy, how disappointing. We crave a taste of risk literature from the turn of the century. Can't Marian at least show a hint of flirtation to Mr. Raikes? Gladys Russell's love life is facing similar challenges to Marian's despite her mother reluctantly allowing her to have a lady's maid. She has yet to receive permission for a coming out party. And to make matters worse, her mother has a specific person in mind for Gladys to court, and it's definitely not Archie Baldwin, the young man she's been secretly meeting. However, when Bertha and George invite Archie to dinner at their house, Gladys sees it as an opportunity for her family to get to know him. Little does she know, the invitation is actually a trap to remove Archie from her life. Despite Archie's connections and wealth, he is still not deemed suitable for Gladys, and the Russells have devised a plan to bribe him into leaving her forever. Mr. Russell offers Archie a job in finance if he agrees to stay away from Gladys and threatens to ruin his career if he refuses. When Gladys and her brother Larry discover this deceit, they are both shocked and devastated. Meanwhile, Miss Turner, who is still infatuated with Mr. Russell, reveals her true colors by striking a deal with Oscar Van Ryan. As she agrees to inform him about Gladys's prospects, while also promoting Oscar as a potential suitor to the Russells, will these manipulations lead to a union between the two families? Miss Turner is certainly weaving a tangled web here. I have to say this, every time Bertha gets rid of Gladys's love interest, she always say the words, "It's not what I want," and she says that in almost every episode. Man, does it make my skin crawl every time she say those words. Ashley is clearly using Gladys as a way to stay in high society and to keep her popularity among people who don't give a crap about her. Bertha, to me, is overall selfish. Just because it's what you want doesn't mean it's what your child wants. Wake up, Bertha! Oh my God, I've run for the hills, Gladys. Meanwhile, Miss Turner, who is still infatuated with Mr. Russell, reveals her true colors by striking a deal with Oscar Van Ryan. She agrees to inform him about Gladys's prospects while also promoting Oscar as a potential suitor to the Russells. Will these manipulations lead to a union between the two families? Miss Turner is certainly weaving a tangled web here. So Gladys's love life is in turmoil as the threads of her relationships are unraveling. Just then, Mr. Clay, a colleague of Mr. Russell, pays a visit to their home with distressing news. A tragic train accident has occurred on one of their tracks in Pennsylvania, resulting in the loss of at least 3 lives and numerous injuries. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Mr. Russell urgently instructs Mrs. Russell to summon Clara Barton to the scene without delay. The stakes are high, as we've witnessed how swiftly fortunes can crumble on this show, and George Russell is well aware that this catastrophe could spell disaster for his business. Not only does the accident carry a heavy human toll, but the fate of their own fortune hangs precariously in the balance. This overall episode has a lot of drama, which we all love. I'm just really glad that Peggy's mom gave Marian a reality check. Though it does hurt to know that they could never be friends due to their race, but at least they do keep a certain type of acquaintances, I guess, between each other. I may be wrong. I don't know. Tell me down below in the comments what you think of this episode and what your thoughts are on the whole Bertha getting rid of Archie Baldwin. So next time, take care of yourself.